You paid $200 for a concert ticket. The band is terrible. The sound is awful. Your feet hurt. And yet when your friend asks you about it the next day, you say, it was actually pretty good. Why? Why would you lie not just to your friend but to yourself? The answer is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, and once you understand it, you will never see your own decisions the same way again. This is cognitive dissonance, and it's running your life. At its core, cognitive dissonance is breathtakingly simple. It's the mental discomfort you feel when you hold two contradictory beliefs at the same time, or when your actions don't match your values. You believe you're a healthy person, but you just crushed an entire pizza at midnight. You think of yourself as honest, but you lied on your resume. That tension, that uneasy friction between who you think you are and what you actually did, that's cognitive dissonance. And your brain hates it. See, your mind craves consistency. It wants your beliefs, your actions, and your identity to form a neat, coherent story. And when they don't line up, your brain doesn't just sit with the discomfort. It goes to work. It starts editing the story, not the facts, the story. You don't change your behavior. You change how you think about your behavior. That pizza, it was a cheap meal. You earned it. That lie on the resume, everyone exaggerates a little. No big deal. And just like that, the discomfort disappears. But here's the thing, nothing actually changed. You just got better at lying to yourself. So where did this idea come from? The concept was first formally described by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1957, and the story behind it is almost as fascinating as the theory itself. Festinger infiltrated a doomsday cult. Seriously. A group led by a woman named Dorothy Martin believed that aliens would destroy the Earth on December 21, 1954, and that only true believers would be rescued by a flying saucer. Festinger wanted to know what happens when the prophecy fails. What happens when the world doesn't end? Here's what happened. December 21st came and went. No aliens, no flood, no apocalypse. And did the cult members say, well, guess we were wrong? No, they doubled down. They claimed their faith had been so strong that the aliens decided to spare the Earth. The disconfirmation didn't weaken their belief. It made it stronger. Because admitting they were wrong would have meant admitting they'd upended their entire lives, quit jobs, left families, given away possessions for nothing. The psychological cost of being wrong was simply too high, so their brains rewrote reality instead. Festinger went on to design one of the most famous experiments in psychology. In 1959, along with James Carlsmith, he asked participants to do an incredibly boring task, turning wooden pegs on a board for an hour. Afterward, some participants were paid $20 to tell the next person the task was fun. Others were paid just $1 to say the same thing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When asked later how they actually felt about the task, the people paid $20 said it was boring. Fair enough, they knew they'd lied, and they had a good reason. $20, but the people paid only $1. They actually convinced themselves the task was enjoyable. $1 wasn't enough to justify lying, so their brains resolved the conflict a different way by deciding they weren't lying at all. They changed their own belief to match their behavior. For a single dollar. Think about what that means. Your brain will literally rewrite your preferences, your memories, your opinions, just to avoid the discomfort of contradiction. And it does this constantly in ways you never notice. Let's bring this into your actual life. You buy an expensive car. Within days, you start noticing ads for that car everywhere. You read every positive review. You skip the negative ones. This is called the post-purchase rationalization effect, and it's cognitive dissonance at work. You spent the money, you can't undo that, so your brain works overtime to convince you it was the right call. Or think about relationships. You stay with someone who treats you badly. Your friends can see it. You can probably see it too on some level, but leaving would mean admitting you wasted years of your life. It would mean your judgment was wrong, so instead you make excuses. They're going through a hard time. It's not that bad. You don't know them like I do. You're not defending the relationship. You're defending your decision to stay. There's a difference. This shows up in politics too. Researchers at Emory University put people in brain scanners during the 2004 presidential election and watched what happened when they were shown evidence that their preferred candidate had contradicted himself. The reasoning centers of their brains barely activated. Instead, the emotional centers lit up. Their brains processed the contradiction as a threat and neutralized it, not with logic, but with feeling. And once they'd explained away the inconsistency, the brain's reward centers activated. They literally got a hit of pleasure from rejecting inconvenient facts. Your brain doesn't just tolerate bias, it rewards it. Now here's where it gets darker. Cognitive dissonance doesn't just make you rationalize bad purchases or stay in bad relationships. It can make good people do terrible things. And it does this through a process psychologists call the pyramid of choice. Imagine two people standing at the top of a pyramid. They're nearly identical in their values. Then one of them makes a small ethical compromise. Nothing major, maybe they look the other way on a minor issue. Cognitive dissonance kicks in. To justify that choice, they shift their beliefs slightly. It wasn't really that bad. Now the next compromise is a little easier, and the next one easier still. Before long, the two people who started in almost the same place are standing on opposite sides of a moral canyon. Not because one of them is evil, but because each small step required a small justification, and those justifications accumulate. This is how fraud starts in companies, how corruption creeps into institutions, how ordinary people end up participating in systems they once would have found unthinkable. Nobody wakes up and decides to become the villain of the story. They slide there, one rationalization at a time, and cognitive dissonance greases the slope. Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson documented this brilliantly in their book, Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. They showed how everyone from prosecutors who convicted innocent people to doctors who caused patient harm will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid admitting error. Not because they're bad people, but because their identity as a competent professional cannot coexist with the idea that they ruined someone's life. So the brain steps in and closes the gap. So what do you actually do with this information? First, recognize that you are not immune. Nobody is. Cognitive dissonance is not a flaw in certain people. It's a feature of having a human brain. The smartest, most educated, most self-aware people are just as susceptible. In fact, some research suggests they're better at it because they have more sophisticated tools for rationalization. Second, watch for the feeling. Dissonance has a signature, that squirming discomfort when someone challenges a belief you hold, that flash of irritation when you encounter evidence against a decision you've made. Most people treat that feeling as a signal to dig in, to defend, to dismiss. But that feeling is actually information. It's your brain telling you that something doesn't fit, and instead of running from it, you can lean into it. Ask yourself, am I defending this because it's true, or because I need it to be true? Third, make it safe to be wrong. The reason cognitive dissonance is so powerful is that being wrong feels like an identity threat. If I admit this decision was bad, what does that say about me? But the truth is, changing your mind in the face of new evidence isn't weakness. It's the single most rational thing a human being can do. The problem is that our brains aren't built for rationality. They're built for consistency, and those are not the same thing. Here's the uncomfortable truth at the center of all this. Your brain is not a truth-seeking machine. It is a story-maintaining machine, and it will sacrifice facts, logic, relationships, even your own well-being to keep that story intact. Cognitive dissonance is the engine that makes this possible. It's the silent editor in the back of your mind, quietly rewriting the script so that you always come out looking like the hero. But now you know it's there, and that changes everything. Because the moment you catch yourself rationalizing, you have a choice. You can let your brain smooth it over, or you can sit with the discomfort long enough to actually learn something. So here's my question for you. What's something you've rationalized that deep down you know doesn't add up? Drop it in the comments. I promise you are not the only one. If this changed how you think about your own mind, hit subscribe. Next week, we're talking about the sunk cost fallacy, the reason you finish bad movies, stay in dead-end jobs, and keep pouring money into things that will never pay off. You won't want to miss it.